Hey friends, I hope you're having a great week so far. Hey, we as a church have been in the book of Acts this summer, and it has been so rich to immerse ourselves in the text and see how the early church lived into Jesus' call to be his witnesses in the whole earth and to be a reflection of his love. And in Acts chapter 2, starting in verse 42, we get a glimpse of how they started to live into this call. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship and to the breaking of bread and to prayer. They devoted themselves. This word in the original Greek paints this picture of deep commitment to see a certain outcome happen. This wasn't a willy-nilly contract or a forced obedience, but this was a deep commitment that they felt with every fiber of their being. And this commitment changed the way that they lived their daily lives. It altered their schedules. It changed their relationships because they were committed. And as I think about someone who's devoted, I also think about in the Old Testament, the man named Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a man who was devoted. He heard about the walls that had been demolished in Jerusalem. And so he decided that he was going to be a part of that restoration, and he was going to help lead the charge to rebuild the city and rebuild the walls. And so he went back and started this great work, but it wasn't without distraction or discouragement. There were some leaders from other areas around that did not want to see these walls rebuilt. And so they came and they would just taunt and tease and discourage and even threaten Nehemiah. But in Nehemiah chapter 6, starting in verse 3, we read this amazing response of Nehemiah as he looked at those leaders from other territories and he said, I am doing a great work and I will not come down. I am doing a great work and I will not come down. I heard recently a sermon about this from Andy Stanley. I think I heard it in January. And I just began to mull this over and talk about it with my husband. And we just started to say, okay, Andy Stanley asked us, what's our great work? And for us, we determined that God had given us the great work of raising our precious girls and to focus on them in this season. As many of you know, we had a new baby in March, and we have a 5-year-old daughter as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we were committed and devoted to this great work of raising our girls. My husband is a graphic designer, so he actually made a piece of art that says, I'm doing a great work and I won't come down. And we have it in our living room on our mantle right above my head. And we see it every single day as a reminder of the priority that we have to really invest in our family. We put this up in February, and little did we know that just a couple of weeks later, the coronavirus would hit and the pandemic would change our daily lives drastically. Our pediatrician has said that because we have such a small little baby that we need to stay in isolation. So we've been isolated, my friends, for almost 4 months. And the entire lifetime of our baby, we have been isolated for the most part, except for that first week we saw a few family members and then everything changed. And so here we are isolated, and there have been some really sweet, precious times as we have learned to have a new dynamic of being a family of 4. And it's been great to have all this concentrated time together, but it's also been hard some days. I mean, the days have gotten long and we're getting a little stir crazy, but on those long days, I just look up and I just see this reminder, I'm doing a great work and I won't come down. And I have to think about the things in my life that then distract me from that great work. And you know what, to be honest, my phone can be a distraction where I get sucked into Instagram or reading news. And my friends, there's a lot of news to read these days. And this thing in my hand can take away from those in front of me and my family. And so I have to even look at my phone and say, I'm doing a great work and I will not come down. And I have to ask you, what is the great work in your life? Maybe like us, you're pouring into kids and you are just busy with the schedules with your kids and making meals and changing diapers. Maybe for some of you grandparents, you're investing in your grandkids. Others of you may feel like you are called to launch a business or go back to school. But I do believe every single one of us have a great work that we are called to in this season. And there's things that will distract you, just like I get distracted sometimes. But just like Nehemiah, let's look those distractions in the eye and say, I am doing a great work and I will not come down. Let's be like Nehemiah. Let's be like the early church, and let's be committed and devoted to seeing the certain outcome that God has laid on our hearts come to fruition.